Welcome to Self-Discipline, Selections from All Men Are Brothers by Mahatma Gandhi Ji, Vegetarian, Part 2 of 2. Born Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, the man who came to be known as the Great-Souled or Mahatma Gandhi Ji, was an exemplary spiritual practitioner and visionary leader of India. Born in 1869, this passionate servant of humanity first became a lawyer. However, he felt a different calling from within, as he discovered a fervent wish to improve the lives of all people. The beloved Mahatma Gandhi Ji sometimes spoke about desired changes in government and would meditate and fast to encourage a non-violent and beneficial outcome. He thus became an example of peaceful change for an entire country. In his book, All Men Are Brothers, Mahatma Gandhi Ji humbly reflects on his own life and inner realizations as a way to illustrate the unity of our global spiritual family. In one passage, he describes faith as a divine principle within us all, regardless of religion. It is faith that steers us through stormy seas, faith that moves mountains, and faith that jumps across the ocean. That faith is nothing but a living, wide-awake consciousness of God within. He who has achieved that faith wants nothing. Bodily diseased, he is spiritually healthy. Physically poor, he rolls in spiritual riches. Now we would like to share with you Mahatma Gandhi's eloquent thoughts on self-discipline from Chapter 5 of his book, All Men Are Brothers. Chapter 5, Self-Discipline. Experience has taught me that silence is a part of the spiritual discipline of a votary of truth. Proneness to exaggerate, to suppress or modify the truth, wittingly or unwittingly, is a natural weakness of man, and silence is necessary in order to surmount it. A man of few words will rarely be thoughtless in his speech. He will measure every word. Silence, has now become both a physical and spiritual necessity for me. Originally, it was taken to relieve the sense of pressure. Then I wanted time for writing. After, however, I had practiced it for some time, I saw the spiritual value of it. It suddenly flashed across my mind that that was the time when I could best hold communion with God. And now I feel as though I was naturally built for silence. Silence of the sewn-up lips is no silence. He is silent who, having the capacity to speak, utters no idle word. All power comes from the preservation and sublimation of the vitality that is responsible for the creation of life. This vitality is continuously and even unconsciously dissipated by evil, or even rambling, disorderly, unwanted thoughts. And since thought is the root of all speech and action, the quality of the latter corresponds to that of the former. Hence, perfectly controlled thought is itself power of the highest potency and becomes self-acting. If a man is after the image of God, he has but to will a thing in the limited sphere allotted to him, and it becomes. Such power is impossible in one who dissipates his energy any way whatsoever. It is better to enjoy through the body than to be enjoying the thought of it. It is good to disapprove of sensual desires as soon as they arise in the mind, and try to keep them down. But if for want of physical enjoyment, the mind wallows in the thoughts of enjoyment, then it is legitimate to satisfy the hunger of the body. About this, I have no doubt. Sex urge is a fine and noble thing. There is nothing to be ashamed of in it, but it is meant only for the act of creation. Any other use of it is a sin against God and humanity. The world seems to be running after things of transitory value. It has no time for the other, and yet, when one thinks a little deeper, it becomes clear that it is the things eternal that count in the end. One such is brahmacharya, or pure conduct. What is brahmacharya? It is the way of life which leads us to Brahma, God. It includes full control over the process of reproduction. The control must be in thought, word, and deed. If the thought is not under control, the other two have no value. For one whose thought is under control, the other is mere child's play. It is true that he who has attained perfect brahmacharya does not stand in need of protecting walls, but the aspirant undoubtedly needs them, even as a young mango plant has need of a strong fence around it. A child goes from its mother's lap to the cradle, and from cradle to the pushcart, till he becomes a man who has learned to walk without aid. To cling to the aid when it is needless is surely harmful. It appears to me that even the true aspirant does not need the above-mentioned restraints. Brahmacharya is not a virtue that can be cultivated by outward restraints. He who runs away from a necessary contact with a woman does not understand the full meaning of brahmacharya. However attractive a woman may be, her attraction will produce no effect on the man without the urge. The true brahmachari will shun false restraints. He must create his own fences according to his limitations, breaking them down when he feels that they are unnecessary. The first thing is to know what true brahmacharya is, then to realize its value, and lastly to try to cultivate this priceless virtue. I hold that true service of the country demands this observance. As an external aid to brahmacharya, fasting is as necessary as selection and restriction in diet. So overpowering are the senses that they can be kept under control only when they are completely hedged in on all sides, from above and from beneath. It is common knowledge that they are powerless without food, and so fasting undertaken with a view to control of the senses is, I have no doubt, very helpful. With some, fasting is of no avail, because assuming that mechanical fasting alone will make them immune, they keep their bodies without food, but feast their minds upon all sorts of delicacies, thinking all the while what they will eat and what they will drink after the fast terminates. Such fasting helps them in controlling neither palate nor lust. Fasting is useful when the mind cooperates with the starving body, that is to say, when it cultivates a distaste for the objects that are denied to the body. Mind is at the root of all sensuality. Fasting, therefore, has limited use, for a fasting man may continue to be swayed by passion. Brahmacharya is such only if it persists under all conditions and in the face of every possible temptation. If a beautiful woman approaches the marble statue of a man, it will not be affected in the least. A brahmachari is one who reacts in a similar case in the same way as marble does. But just as the marble statue refrains from using its eyes or ears, even so, a man should avoid every occasion of sin.
If we all took steps to reduce the amount of meat in our diet, that would have a dramatic impact on the global environment, as well as on our own health. The Honorable Tengam Debonair, Vegan.
Superb viewers! It's been a pleasure to have your company on today's Words of Wisdom.